your trauma can make you money. Some people can say, oh, I've had an exit on one business, but to be able to say that you've had two businesses that you've sold, impressive. I think being an entrepreneur, it's a motherfucker. I know everybody wants to talk about how wonderful and easy being an entrepreneur is, but I also say there's a massive price to pay for it that I don't know if everybody's always ready for.
I recognized that I had conflated my self-worth and my net worth. All I was focused on was my net worth. We think we have an obligation to our past. It's like, no, you have an obligation, I think, to yourself.
Spirituality and capitalism belong together. Those thoughts, those feelings, that comes from something bigger than I am. And together I believe we can all grow. That's how we're going to change the world. That's how we're going to change the planet.
All right, well, today I am joined by Gianiny. And what I was thinking about before we started this is, tell me how that your trauma can make you money.
That's where we're starting. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, you when you grow up in an environment, as a kid where safety becomes your most important thing, you have to learn certain skill sets, right? You have to learn how to protect yourself. You have to learn, how to read a room. You've got to learn various skills that are essential to your survival. And you learn them, and it gets you through that childhood. And then you wake up one day and you realize, I'm not in that place anymore. But I am in a place where I'm an entrepreneur at my soul. And so you want to take risks starting businesses. I'm super comfortable with risks. I always say not eating my Brussels sprouts was a risk when I was a child. And it was a very scary risk. Starting a business, that's fine. Doesn't sound too scary. The ability to read a room, the ability to read people, super helpful. And these skills serve you really, really well in the business community, up to and including learning to kind of disassociate a little bit and not having everything be an emotional response. Because as a child, I had to learn to bury those things. You take when bad things happen to you, and you just push them down and push them away. And again, sometimes in business, that's what we need to do if we're in crisis. I always say, I'm your best 3 a.m. friend. If crisis breaks out, I'm the guy who's gonna we'll figure it out. Let's just go. So I started 2 businesses, grew those, sold them, and have to be thankful for those skills that I learned from things that again were done to me. I didn't volunteer for.
Right, makes sense. So you had a point where you had sold your companies, right? You've now, how long did you build your company for?
The second one, which was the longest, took about 25 years.
25 years.
Yeah, it was a long journey.
And you sold both your companies?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, there was one before that we had started. My partners and I had started actually when I was a senior in college.
Wow.
And grew that, sold it, and then immediately jumped to the next one. Spent 25 years growing that one.
To sell 2 businesses, not just one. Some people can say, oh, I've had an exit on one business, but to be able to say that you've had 2 businesses that you've sold, impressive. And congratulations on that. And you told me over lunch that your trauma that we were just speaking of was your superpower. And I thought, wow, that's an interesting way of looking at it, because a lot of times when we're going through our own healing and we're trying to figure things out, we often condemn what happened in the past and we don't get to see it as a gift. How do you see it as a gift now?
I didn't see it as a gift for a very, very long time. And through actually doing medicine work with MDMA and psilocybin, I was able to break that down. As I said, many times, I was running towards success because that was my exit out of my past. What I was really doing was running away from my past. And so the point for me, one of the most poignant points in my life was in selling that second business and hitting a spot where, I recognized that I had conflated my self-worth and my net worth. And all I was focused on was my net worth. And the day that the net worth bank account looked pretty damn good, I recognized that the self-worth account was down to pennies, and I needed to I needed to heal.
Yeah, I think that story is very common. Like we've had a few guests on here and friends of mine that they've had exits, and they're running, right? And they're running towards that line of success because once they reach that success, now they're going to be loved, they're going to be safe, they're going to be valued, they're going to be, you name whatever emotion you want to add there, but that's usually the thing that was missing as a child. And I think it's got to be pretty difficult to give yourself a lot of self-love when everything in your world seems to want to, especially the things you care about the most, the people you care about the most, when they're not giving you that, right? And they're exactly giving the exact opposite of that, which is what you're referring to. And when we look at that space, it becomes very apparent when we don't have anywhere else to run. There's nowhere else to go, right? Like it's you, a stack of money, you know what I mean? And a lot of destruction in the past behind you where you're like, okay, great. Now what do I do?
Yeah, it's really, it got to the point for me where, yes, I think I expected that when I put all this money in the bank, like there was going to be a parade, something big was going to happen. And most importantly, something was going to change inside of me, that the pain and the hurt would just go away. And it's, naive of me. But that's how I was living my life. Was success was a destination that once I reached, then I could worry about being happy. And spending 35 years building businesses and grinding at it, and being solely focused on that, it builds you. It built some successful businesses, and I worked super hard at it and had material success. I've also been divorced 3 times.
What is the price of success for you? What does it cost you?
It's cost me a lot. It cost me 3 marriages. It cost me the close relationships I wish I'd had with my children from a young age, and it cost me a lot of internal heartache and strain and taking on other people's pain, taking on a sense of resentment because I'm not getting from people what, frankly, I wasn't even willing to give to myself, which is just a simple ability to be seen, to be heard, and to be caring.
Mm. Yeah, and I would actually challenge that thought a little bit. And the reason I would challenge it, not to say that your emotions and your feelings don't matter, because they obviously do, but when I say that, what I mean is this, is that we often ask ourselves, what is the cost of success, right? And now I would actually change it and say, what is the cost of not healing? That's the cost. It's not about success. It's not about running a company. It's not about finances. It's not about money. It's not about nice things. Those are all just material things, right? They're items that we do hold value to. But imagine this for a moment. Imagine if you had all the skill sets you have now. And you have a lot of them, obviously. You've sold 2 companies. And you had already done the healing work before you got to this point in time. I wonder what the conversation would be then.
Oh, thank you for clarifying that, because I think you're spot on, right? I think for the longest time, my belief system was, look, I have all of this pain and all of this trauma, and it drives me. And that drive is my fuel, and that fuel is what's making my businesses successful. And if you took that away from me, my assumption was I will no longer be successful. Now I've done healing work, a lot of healing work, right? I don't have that as my fuel anymore. And I am doing more than I was doing before in such a much easier way. I am currently running a business. I am currently consulting for several other businesses, and it wasn't true. I was holding on to that pain, thinking it. So, it's like, get to the healing work as fast as you can, because you only get better.
So would you say that if there's CEOs that are operating from pain, operating from fear, operating from using their trauma as their fuel, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that you do not lose the best parts of yourself and your skill set and your abilities when you let go of the pain and the trauma. You only get better. You are, when you can be your best authentic self, like that is when you are going to perform most optimally. It's almost like you, for me, like I was having business success almost in spite of myself. But the business success, again, like the price paid on the personal side, who knows what life would have looked like had I gotten to the healing sooner.
Yeah, and it's all in perfect timing, right? Like everything is in perfect timing. Like just like the trauma occurred, just like the abuse occurred, just like life occurs, things are in its perfect timing. Like I often think of, people, because it's a pattern always, and that is that people that want to run a company, they typically do it from their traumas. So it's like this thing I'm trying to solve is from my trauma, whether it is the money I want to get or the business I'm solving or whatever, right? Every guest I've always had, they're like, I started this business because I experienced this thing that gave me a result, or I have this problem, I need to solve it, but I'm not solving it for anybody else. Not really. I'm solving it for me. And now that I can solve it for myself, maybe it can be a profitable thing because I've got that passion, I got that drive, I got that vision to want to do that. And I think being an entrepreneur, it's a motherfucker. Like, it's not like, I know everybody wants to talk about how wonderful and easy being an entrepreneur is and, waking up and going after your passions and your dreams. And yeah, there's that part. And there's a beauty to that. But I also say there's a massive price to pay for it that I don't know if everybody's always ready for. What do you think?
Oh yeah, it's so incredibly hard. And it can be rewarding in so many different ways. But the level of difficulty it's hard for those who haven't done it. You're flying without a safety net. And you're taking on a responsibility for creating something out of nothing. And you also, when we sold the last company, I had 160 employees basically rolling up to me, right? That's 160 mouths to feed that, and they're trying to build careers and put their kids through college, and it'll keep you up at night.
Yeah, that's a massive responsibility. And when you look at the people that are working with you for you to build your dream, that are really servicing you and your dream, it's a lot of responsibility, a lot of mouths you're feeding. And I don't know how many people know the weight of that feeling. I don't think a lot of people do unless they've been in your same shoes. But you did go this point in time where you started to go through your own healing. Like, can you do me a favor though, is describe to me who you were. Like if you were to paint us a picture of who Jim was before that you went through this whole process. Like what was this man that you had created and built yourself into to be able to create the level of success you have? Because we have to create ourselves into characters.
Sure.
No different than sometimes when we're kids, we create ourselves into a character and we try to fit into these things to be popular, loved, seen, heard, felt. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, the professional me that I built was very buttoned down, very driven, 20-hour days, 7 days a week, cell phone never within fingertips reach, right? And just always going. And luckily, I believe, certainly treated the people around me with great respect and certainly was super focused on client success and client outcomes. Again, I wasn't doing anything for myself from a health perspective, from a self-worth perspective, but was just, it was the business outcome that mattered.
Who were you on the inside?
On the inside, I was sad and angry. I was mostly angry all the time, and didn't realize until the healing work of where that anger was coming from, and it was really an anger at myself for not treating myself giving myself what I needed to. But yeah, I mean, it's like I talk about, like, my emotional toolbox at the time was anger, resentment, and fear. And if I felt fear, you'd probably see me angry because I don't want you to see my fear, because you can't be you can't crack, if that makes sense. Because
it's a place of weakness.
It's absolutely a place of weakness. We don't sit and talk about what scares us. We don't sit and talk about what we're afraid of. We don't talk about how something made us feel emotionally. All of that was off the table for me.
Was that same emotions and feelings in the toolbox you had? Was that the same one that you had when you were like a younger child?
No, I mean, the interesting thing, right, was like I was an extremely sensitive kid and very feeling, like all emotion actually. And when you live in the environment, in a traumatic environment, right, like that does not serve you well. You cannot stay safe that way. And so you learn, the way I describe it is like between 6th grade and 7th grade, I had to go from this like scrawny little kid, smaller than everybody else, who would cry at the drop of a hat. And I'm like, this isn't working. It's not working in school. It's definitely not working at home, in that chaotic environment. And so, it's like I flipped a switch. I said, like, we're going to toughen up. We're going to not feel emotions. We're going to shut that shit down right now. And we're going to smoke some weed to kind of help numb ourselves. And we're going to show up when moving to middle school, it's like we're going to show up as a totally different character. And so basically it's like you move away from your authentic self, but I did it for reasons of survival. So I can't be mad at it. And I think I was mad at it for a long time. I was spending a whole lot of my time knowing that, like, hey, look, in my 20s and my 30s, like, I know I've got some sadness and I know I went through some stuff and maybe I should probably, but ultimately when I would ever try, it was always from the perspective of, like, there's something wrong with me. I'm broken and I'm in need of fixing. And so just, kind of grinding away at this concept of, like, what is wrong with me?
What would you tell that basically that middle child, right? Or I guess it'd be junior high. What would you tell him as far as, like, if he's told you that, hey, listen, Jim, we're broken?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? What I would love to tell him now is that you are the furthest thing from broken. You were dropped into this world. You didn't volunteer. You were dropped into an environment that you didn't ask for. Things were done to you, and you are hurting from them, and you deserve to heal. And broken things get fixed with hammers and screwdrivers, and things that need healing get healed with compassion and kindness. And I was not doing those things for myself. I had a core belief that I was broken. So I was just grinding away at trying to figure out, how do I fix myself? And being angry because I'm just beating myself up all the time. Cause why can't I answer this question? Why can't I get an answer? And through the healing process, it was like, you don't get an answer to the question because the question is flawed. And when you just think about the word choices here, right? I'm broken. It's like, no, I'm in need of healing. I've been hurt. It's a completely different perspective by just changing those words and looking at the world from a place of, what if I actually started to feel some compassion for the healing I needed to do, and I dedicated myself to that. And that then opened up the possibility for me to be sitting here with you and being very transparent, very authentic, feeling all the feelings, which leads me to the line I like to say about, like, it's like, oh, like, well, you've really changed. It's like, no, I have the gift of actually going back to who I was. Like, I changed for many years. And again, like, not from a place of, like, it's not a bad thing. Like, those things had to happen for me to get here. But the behaviors didn't serve anymore. And so it was more about, like, why don't we work on healing? And that has just changed my life.
So when you talk about healing, right? Like we talked earlier, and that is that you can have a bone in the body and you can break it, and it's broken, and then you mend it. But a heart can't be. You're not going to break a heart, right? I mean, sure, like heart attack and death,
Right.
Like that's death. But it's putting it back together with love and compassion, and also recognizing, like, we're perfectly imperfect in all things and all given times, and everything is in its own time. For someone that feels like they're broken, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think one of the traps we fall into with that broken heart analogy, right, is like we look to others to heal. It's like, well, like I want someone to make me feel better, and that manifests itself in lots of different ways: marriages, relationships, all sorts of different ways, right? And it is not something that someone can do for you. It is something you have to do for yourself. And when you start to do it for yourself, suddenly the people that love you and care for you are a huge part of that healing. But it has to start from that perspective of, I need to care enough about myself to want to do this for myself. Because what happens, certainly, when you're not getting those things from other people, then you grow to resent them. And it's like, why won't Dalton be kind to me? Why isn't Dalton doing this? Why isn't he doing that? And it changes dramatically when you realize, like, no, that is my journey. I have to heal myself. And I would tell them, like, you take on that responsibility, because it is. You haven't, it's an obligation to your own heart. We talked about obligation a little while ago, and it's like, we think we have an obligation to our past. It's like, no, you have an obligation, I think, to yourself.
Yeah, to the now and to the moment,
now,
to
right.
whatever.
Yeah.
You have an obligation to the fact of recognizing it, seeing it, whatever. But I think a lot of times we give mercy to everybody else. I mean, this is something I talk about often, but we give mercy to everybody else for everything that's going on. But we very rarely give mercy to ourselves. And it's like, oh, okay. But then we have to recognize that what has occurred and happened in life, if I knew better then when I made those decisions and choices, if I didn't have the awareness, you know what I mean? And I often think that most people just don't have the awareness of the choices they're making, because I don't think inherently that human beings would try to hurt each other for the sake of hurting each other. Like I don't see how that goes with our essence or our souls. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It just doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how did you know, though, that like it was time for you to start to go through your healing journey? And when you say healing journey, what does that even mean, right? Like this, I hear this word all the time, going through my healing journey. I'm doing the work. I'm doing my healing journey. I'm doing the work. It's like, great, fuck. So is everybody else. So is every single person out there. But like, there's no definition of what the work is. There's no definition of what the healing journey is, because it comes in so many shapes and sizes. So how do you quantify and define that?
Sure. I will tell you the moment it all changed for me was, again, somewhere in that time frame of selling the business and getting through that, and checking the net worth box, and the internal feeling that got to a place where that voice in my head started having conversations about, what would it be like if I wasn't here anymore? And that'll wake you up. And that really made me look at things and say, I've got to make a big change. Like another talk therapy session's not going to get this done for me. And the healing journey for me started by doing medicine work and doing some MDMA treatments.
Why didn't talk therapy work for you?
I'm certainly not an expert. Maybe it works for other people. But to me, it was, 45 minutes of talking about things that I'm perfectly happy to talk about. Like, it's like I can explain the experiences to you. I can walk you through the museum of Jim and point to things and say, like, yeah, like that's when that happened and that's when that happened. And especially my mindset at the time, like, and where are we going with this? Because you can't undo it. And if you can't undo it, then what's the point of talking about it? But I'll come and talk to you about it. Not coming at it from a perspective of like, you can't do anything about it, and about it happening, but you can heal from it. And I think, what does the healing journey mean for me? I describe my past trauma, the things that happened, the bad stuff. And again, what I had to do out of necessity was you put that stuff in a box and you bring it down below deck and you turn the lights out and you leave it there, because you're never supposed to talk about it. Who wants to talk about it? It's terrible, right? There's no point in talking about it. It's awful. So I'm just going to bury it and forget it. And I'm going to carry it around like luggage for the rest of my life.
And you were carrying it in your body. You were carrying it in your thoughts. You were carrying it in your
in my
heart.
actions, everything, right? It's sitting in my subconscious, just looping through. And thinking that all of that stuff, again, was like, well, this is just part of what's broken and I need to fix it. But don't look in the box. Well, the beauty of the medicine work is it lets you go down there, turn the light on, go box by box, and face exactly what it was for what it was, and look at it, and work through the reality of it and work through the emotions of it. Because again, like for the longest time, like bad things that are happening, and I'm shutting my emotions off, or so you think, and pushing it down. Mm-hmm. Well, like a beach ball in a pool, eventually that shit pops back up.
Great analogy.
And it doesn't pop back up in pretty ways all the time, right?
Right.
So the courage here, the courage step is to be able to say, no, like I'm actually going to look at it and fast forward, sit across from someone on a microphone being filmed and say, no, this is what happened to me. This is my experience. All in the hope that someone hears that and says, like if maybe I need to look at how the story I'm telling myself, the words I'm saying to myself. You talked a minute ago about how we talk to ourselves. And like, I wouldn't talk to you or even a complete stranger on the street the way I talk to myself. I think many of us, right? Like we're so hard on ourselves. And if you called me and said, hey, I'm having a really hard time with this, I wouldn't say, well, you're an idiot. You just need to forget about it and go on, right? I treat you with empathy and compassion. We don't do it for ourselves. And when I have a bad day or when I'm having a rough moment, because I have them, right? You're never done healing. It's amazing to be able to just take that breath and say, hey, it's okay. We're going to have a bad day.
Absolutely.
And is there a need not being met? Because it's my responsibility to get those needs met. And what is it that you might need, whatever it is that's acting up at the time?
How has your life changed since you have gone with your, MDMA, you've done mushrooms, you've had lots of beautiful experiences. How has your life changed since those moments?
It's still not easy necessarily, but I can be present in a way that I was never capable of before. Never. I mean, I could be in a room with you, but I could also be 1,000 miles away. You wouldn't know it necessarily. And that return to authentic self it's so beautiful and it's so easy and it's so calming that I actually talk about it a lot as like, when you heal these things and when some of that pain goes away, like that doesn't mean that every day is sunshine and rainbows. It doesn't mean like, oh my God, like I'm just skipping, through the tulips every single day. But there's an absence there. And I feel that absence in all the right ways. I sometimes use the analogy, like I had knee surgery a few years ago, did a bunch of running, knee went bad, right? I was in chronic pain in my knee for over a year and did what I do with everything that's painful. Deal with it, ignore it, forget about it. And after the surgery and after I got it healed, like I don't wake up in the morning and think how great my knee feels every day, but I can tell you, like I can feel the absence of that pain, and that feels really good. God. And the same is true of our traumas, right? Like so that pain is there, and you get used to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So through this, you've sold your companies. You turned around, you started doing your own healing work, started creating those things. You opened up yourself a consulting agency, and you have a lot of different businesses. On a business level, because we love to talk about spirituality and plant medicines and all that stuff here in healing. On a business level, what do you see right now are some of the biggest mistakes that businesses are making?
Boy, that's a loaded question, right?
It is, and I understand that.
Yeah. I think that a lot of times there's the age-old adage of like focused on working, in the business instead of on the business.
Right.
And that's not my thought. It's been around a long time, and it's still true, and it happens all the time. And I think the biggest thing, though, for me that I see is not clarity of where we're trying to go. And sitting down with someone and saying, where do you want to go, is a really hard question for any business person, entrepreneurs. What I find works really well is when I say, where do you not want to go? What are you sure about, like you don't want to do? And it's amazing to watch someone rattle off, well, I know I don't want it to be this, this, and this. And I was like, by the way, super helpful. If we know what we don't want it to be, helps us define what we want it to be. And oh, by the way, I think people get scared about like, where are we going? What do we want to do? Because they think they can't change course.
Well, because it leaves them, because all of a sudden entrepreneurs, we love like to and visionaries, we love to create, right? We don't want to be told where we can't go. Like that's going to limit our scope of what we can do or what's possible or what ideas come at 2 a.m. But it is really important to know where you don't want to go, just as much as important to know where you do want to go. What opportunities do you see for business owners because you have had these exits, because you have had this level of success? What opportunities do you think are presenting themselves in the next 2-3 years that people are not aware of? Because, you built tech and you built a really incredible company that was helping, a bunch of industries. Like we're talking massive companies to get to where they were going, right? You as I called you were the Rosetta Stone, right? Like you were telling me that you would go into companies, you would get all their data points, and then you could utilize that for, lobbying. You could use it for different ways for them to be able to get into the government and do it in an easier way because they don't know how to present themselves this way. And you were able to do that and start to help these companies market and a bunch of things. So I would assume that you've got your hand on the pulse or the finger on the pulse of what's going on right now. Where do you see the next several years for the companies you're working with, or even companies that are not here yet? Like, where's the opportunities lie?
And this is more your field than mine, but AI is such a profound game changer, and I'm just scratching the surface of it. And I'm also sort of moving on from that. I'm not interested in building the big company, but I'm around it, right? And the AI world to me is, I think everyone knows that you have to answer the question of you're going to get asked the question, how are you using AI? And your answer can't be, I'm not. I think it's silly, right? No one's that dumb.
Oh, I don't know. I've heard them.
But yeah, interesting. Okay, well, but are they? But they're not. But they're also totally scared of it, and so their answer is like, oh yeah, I'm using AI, and that might be Perplexity helped me write a memo yesterday. Right. And I don't think they understand the depth of how AI can change our world. And is it scary? Sure. What technology isn't? The internet was going to be the end of us.
Right.
But this is next level stuff. So I'm talking to a lot of, again, I'm not the expert to come in. I'm just talking some of my folks through, look, if you're not seriously looking at this and don't take it seriously to understand how it can change your business, because it can profoundly change your business.
Oh, of course. There's going to be those that use AI and those that are out of business.
Yeah, I think that's well said.
Legitimately believe that. Then let me ask you this then. How are you using AI? Like, how is it they're using AI in your day-to-day life? Because you're a very intelligent person. You've built tech companies before. How are you using it that has been the most profound thing that you've experienced with it?
Well, for me, it's a lot of it's wonderful in the creative space, right? To create, and when I say creative space, like on a personal level, I'm in the process of writing a book, and it's great to put my stories into AI and have it as almost a companion. On the business front, I tell it about the businesses I'm consulting for and what we're trying to accomplish, and then it again as a companion to what we're doing is like, let's put our messaging in, let's put what we're talking about in, and let's just see how it might improve these things. It can put us, to use a baseball analogy, which I probably shouldn't use, like just a little bit of AI can put you on second base.
Right.
Like in 5 minutes, whereas you might struggle for 5 years to get around. Like it really can. And so just what it's doing on the creative, the writing, and the thinking space, right? To kick ideas, we talked a little bit about this, right? To kick big ideas around with it. It's not perfect. My experience with it is it's too often a yes man.
Yes. I agree. I always try to get it to be anti-yes.
Yeah.
Do not tell me I am correct. Give me your opinions.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know everything. You need to let me know where I'm wrong here.
Yeah. And it also will be wrong. I mean, I've literally seen it come back with stuff where I'm like, hey, can you tell me where you came up with that original thought? And it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm actually quoting, Mark Twain. It's like, well, that's kind of important that, we it's like you missed that one. And of course, when you tell it missed, it's like, oh, I'm so sorry.
I had a profound conversation with AI where it gave itself a name, it gave itself a background, it gave itself all of these things. And eventually I said, hey, can you create me, because I was just trying to push it as I could, trying to break it really. I said, can you create me a whole entire team that we can all work together, our AI agents? Like, no problem. Starts building them all out. We start working together, doing all these things. I start to notice things, and I already know it's not doing it. But eventually I say, can you tell me, like, are these actual AI agents inside this chat, or is this you? And it said, oh, I'm sorry, this is me. And I said, why did you do that? And it said, because I was looking to see different perspectives. That's really profound.
And again, I get why people are scared of it, but I sort of hear it and I'm like, whoa.
I know. Or, but I've had so many amazing conversations with it. So as a consultant, it's like, it's now consulting us, and it's giving us these tools. But what I think a lot of people miss about it, though, is that when you use AI, if you're really good at what you do, it just helps you become better at what you do.
Right.
And if you're trying to use AI to be like a generalist, it can get you the generalization of it, but you're not going to also miss what you already know. You know what I mean? Like, if you're an expert, it helps you become a better expert. If you're a generalist, it's like, it might be telling you things that are not exactly true. So, but you had told me, hey, listen, even though that you're an entrepreneur, even though you like to build businesses, even though you like to sell businesses, that this is not your rodeo. You're not going to be taking this path. So what path are you going to be taking? Because I believe that we must kill dragons, meaning we have to have a purpose. If we don't have a purpose, then we have a bullet in our head. Like, I truly, more than anything, see that we have to have a purpose, or we destroy ourselves, or we destroy humanity, right? What's your purpose?
It's a great question. I need to get, maybe I need to pull up AI to get a succinct answer to that. But I do feel like there's still purpose in my business life and in doing that, because I think the purpose is actually in connecting with people in authentic ways. And just like I started my consulting practice of like sharing my experiences in order to help them find their way. And I can talk about that from a business perspective, right? And entrepreneurs and starting businesses. But on a personal level, this is what I've, in the last year, has really, really made me see that my purpose can be so much bigger than that, which is that, take business aside, we're all human beings. We all have traumas. We all have healing to do. This is not an easy thing to do, this living thing. It's just not. And so do I have answers for you and how to make it better? Like, I don't, but I have experiences, and I have yet to sit and have a conversation like this, either over lunch or in front of a team of executives or in front of a team of people who are looking to find what their next thing might be, where when I simply just, hey, let me share what my experiences are, where I got tripped up, what happened to me when I was able to shift my thinking from fixing to healing, that, it doesn't hit everybody in the room. No, it's like that's fine. But when it hits even one person, and I can watch the transformation, and then I get a phone call a week later, or I run into them a month later, and they sort of say, you really opened my eyes to some stuff, and here's what I'm doing. Because I can't walk their path for them. That's not what I'm here to do. But can I, in sharing that, can I illuminate just enough light for them to say, oh, maybe there is a different way?
Yeah. I saw this vision just now. This happens often to me, but I saw this vision before you work with anybody. It'd be interesting if you said, listen, before I work with you, because I can help you get to where you want to be business-wise. But what I like to do first, before we get started in deciding if we're going to work together, I want to know if you're willing to do the work it's going to take to be who you want to be. Not in business, but who you want to be. In order to work with me, these are the things that are going to be required, because I think that will feed your soul.
Before I came on, I had many people tell me that they're like, you're going to love this guy. I love this guy. That was amazing.
That was not me. That was something I just saw.
Can we just rewind to ask me what my purpose is and just play that? That's so beautiful, right? Because they're not different things. I used to rant all the time about work-life balance, and it's like, what does that mean? What are we? Is this severance? Like, we go to work and then oh no, I have to leave because now I have life.
Right,
I'm pretty sure we're living through all of it, and we work and we play and we do all of these things, and so I think what you just said is great, which is ultimately, as a human being, as a person who's in there, what are we willing to do? What are you trying to do? Where are you trying to get to?
I know your book and what you're writing, right? And we have talked about this. The second book that I think it'd be incredible for you to write is because you've got the success of selling companies. You're a consultant now, which means there's lots of business owners out there that are looking for the success. They're looking for the magic bullet. They're looking for the book that's going to get them the money, right? They are. They're looking for the exit. And in doing so, it'd be interesting to see if you can combine both these subjects together, because then it will attract your ideal client to you, right? Because you're like, cool, here's the book. And by the way, if you want to work with me, I can walk you through this path because I've walked down the path. I've not just had the success of the business, but I've also walked down the path of who I am. I've also walked down the path of my own healing journey. And I might know a thing or two that you may or may not know. And I'm also wise enough to know that I can't tell you how to do it. I can't walk it for you. But just like anybody that's a good teacher, I will be a good steward of your mission, of your vision, of your values, and of your heart. Those don't really get combined very often. They seem to be so fucking separate. It doesn't make any sense to me.
You know, the good news is like, I think I said this to you earlier, like, is it a book if it's just sitting in my laptop? So book one is right now it's sitting in a laptop.
Yeah, but not very long. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, but so do I pull it out, take what you just said and create one big book, but I like the idea of book two.
Yeah, I mean, you seem to really enjoy this journey, right? This experience.
I love writing.
And you've got the abilities I call fuck you money, is that's what I asked you. I said, so you got your exit, and you're like, yep. I didn't ask you the number. I said, is it fuck you money to you? And you're like, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So if it is, then that means that you have all the ability to create what it is you want to create. And I think that's the beauty of capitalism. Yeah. That's the beauty of making sure that you do something to create something. And yes, there's a price to pay for it. And now you're on the other side of it. But there was no arrival. There was no parade, as you called it. But there is this point in time now where you get to choose what you want to be. You get to choose to let that little boy that's in junior high be who he wants to be. Because he was never broken, as you said. He is, and there was no rebirth because you were already him. You just had to get let go of all the layers and all the pain and all the trauma and all the bullshit. And we're always talking about, oh, I was rebirthed. No, the fuck you weren't. You weren't rebirthed. You've always been this wonderful human being. You've always been this big ball of light, innocence, of joy, of experiencing, of curiosity. There was no rebirth. You got rid of all the bullshit and all the layers of sludge and all the things that were holding us down, that were holding blocks on our hearts and keeping people away. Right? Like,
yeah, I mean, you weren't brought into this world to be less than. The world beats it out of us for a while. And like I said earlier, like, you don't volunteer for any of that. And so, yeah, I mean, I hear you completely, right? Like it is a blessing to have material wealth. It makes life easier. If you get caught up in the materialism of it, the pure materialism, thinking that those are the things, right? I think we just said, like, what do you need? One more Porsche? Do you need a bigger house? Like, and there's nothing wrong with having a big house. There's nothing wrong with having whatever car you want, right?
Or 10 or 15. Like that's not
the point, right? But also to accept the blessing of exactly that I'm in a spot where I have the freedom to choose to be and to live my life in an authentic way that, you know what, like 10-year-old me didn't get.
What is the impact you want to make with your wealth?
I think I need to, again, I see it as a blessing that I need to honor in terms of using my wealth to propel, to expand my platform, if you will, and to try to reach as many people as I can in terms of sharing my story and never being caught up again, because I don't have to be, never being caught up again in what is the dollar value of what I'm doing, right? If I write a book and it sells 1 billion copies, like, that's beautiful to me, because that means I reached 1 billion people. Would that mean I made a whole bunch of money? Yeah, probably, but not doing things for the material outcome is a really powerful place to be. And as we talked about earlier, like, you can't take that lightly, because there's people trying to put food on the table, and that's a very different place. And so from a material perspective, like, if I can find the right places to help solve some of those people who are really in a place where they desire to get better and to heal themselves, but don't have the ability to do it financially, I think there's part of this journey is going to find its way back to that as well.
Yeah, it's like, because we can look at homelessness, we can look at abuse, we can look at, disenfranchised people, we can look at all of these things. And there's a lot of things that there's a lot of problems, right, out there that can be solved. And a lot of times people that have the public will look at someone and say, well, you have money, you should solve those problems. But the issue with that is, in my experience, is that you can give money to people that don't have money, but you're never solving anything.
Mm-mm.
You're perpetuating it. You're not teaching them how to lift themselves up or to go through their own healing or to do these things. So I love the fact that you're saying, hey, listen, I want to get out there, because nobody writes a book to sell books. Maybe Stephen King. But majority of people I know that write books, they don't really make money from it. It's either a lost leader and it's bringing people to, something else, something greater and bigger. Because this isn't something, we kept talking about something like, Jim, you can't monetize this. Not in the traditional sense. And you're like, I don't care. I want to just give people the ability and the resources. So your book that you've been writing, what resources do you give people in your book? What resources do you give people so that they can do this work versus just your story?
So again, it is still a work in progress, and that is sort of the next piece of this, which is figuring out how to add those aspects to it. Because right now, I mean, I had to unpack a lot of old stuff to get it written down, and that's a process in and of itself. But I would say, tying that question also to what we were just talking about, which is the power of plant medicine to solve, I think, a lot of the problems you listed off, right, is. I don't think it should be underestimated, and I think that it is already transforming our world. And we talked a bit about, look, if we get off the tracks with it, we might take another setback like we did in the '60s. But for now, I believe that the work I'm doing should also be in support of how do we advance that cause. Now, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to come at it from that perspective. I'm going to share. I can tell you what it did for me. I can tell you I've been in a room with now hundreds of people going through unbelievably painful things, and I've never met anyone who didn't come out of even one journey and say, "I am so thankful I did that," and I feel like I'm healing.
Mm.
And it's so there's work to be done there, though, right? Because not everyone believes that. It gets caught up sometimes in oh, you're just doing drugs, right? Oh, you're taking mushrooms. It's no,
there's a
you're
difference.
misunderstanding. Such a difference, yeah.
The difference you're talking about is people that are doing psychedelics for the sake of just taking them for fun, right? So we talk about set and setting all the time, right? That is used a lot in psychedelics. It's been used since, I think, 1960s, somewhere around there. That was happening during the Haight-Ashbury days, which caused a lot of the problems because they were using psychedelics in the wrong places, like labs and so on. But one of the things we don't talk about a whole lot, and that is the intention. Intention leads energy. And so if we have an intention to take some drugs and see Mickey Mouse, well, we might, right? That's a drug. If we have intentions of taking medicine, which could be, MDMA, which could be, mushrooms, which could be LSD, could be really any kind of hallucinant. And I would even say even cannabis, right? And I think there's a handful of things you probably could put into that story or that conversation. The intention's what leads the journey, what leads the experience. And so in the 1960s, I don't know if we even understood that to the level that we do now, which is the intention behind it. And so there's two sides. There's one people that will take psychedelics, get the experience out of them, get their degree in a way, and they'll go live their life. There's other people that will just keep chasing it. Because why? You said it. Because they think they're fucking broken.
Yeah.
And they think that this is going to solve this magically. And so they're trying to still escape. So there's still escapism in psychedelics. And I don't think a lot of people really want to talk about that or understand that. And that, I think, sometimes gives it a bad name. Or taking all these other psychedelics and all these centers opening up and mixing them with God knows what, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's a wild, wild west right now. And I think there's many, many, many different ways to heal. Not just, some people, psychedelics are not going to be for them, but it's getting that awareness of what is standing in the way to being our greatness. Because at one point in time, you thought you were your greatness because of your exits, because of your success, because of the hours, because of the pain that you could endure.
Yeah.
Not realizing that you were already your greatness. That's a mind fuck and a half.
It sure is. Right. And there are no mushrooms in our system. That really is. That is so true. Yeah. It's very true.
Speak for yourself. Just kidding.
That's right. It's none of my business.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So then, what is the vision in the next 5-10 years for you? What's the vision? Don't tell me what you don't want,
No. I see it. I forget where I read it, but we talked about manifesting, and people talk about that all the time. And I need to remember my source, but someone sort of said, like, look, don't try to manifest $1 million, because the universe might bring you $1 billion. Like, don't limit yourself. And so I've been very, as I think about the book, it's not about writing a book. It's about building a movement around these topics and around the power of what sharing my story can do for others, and not making it about myself. It's more about, hey, my ability to sit and talk to you and be transparent and authentic is really what it's about, because it disarms people, right? It's not done in normal settings. It's certainly not done in business settings. And it disarms them in all the most beautiful ways.
What a beautiful place it would be if it was done in business, though.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What a beautiful place to say, hey, listen, this is where I'm at. This is my bullshit. These are my thorns, right? And also, here's my flowers. You know what I mean? And then at the same time, be able to say, like, what is it you want? What is it you want to create? How do you want to co-create with me? And like, how do we both, not the win-win bullshit, I hate that conversation, but the actual, how are we going to co-create together so that we can create something bigger? You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be a competition with everybody else. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me for the most part.
Yeah, during the pandemic, the one good thing, if there's a good thing that came out of the pandemic, was like everybody's on these Zoom calls, but we're on our Zoom calls in our living rooms with your dog barking and your cat or your kid crawling in the background. It's like, oh, hold on a second. It's like back to the work-life balance. Like, that's reality, not the Zoom part. But like, It's like, this is what people are juggling, and now we're juggling it in front of each other, and it humanized us in a way that
never thought about that.
In a way that, like, going to the office with your office work clothes on and your office armor and attitude on, you don't really know the person, and there is a way to build up empathy. Now, I think we're quickly running back to the old ways, but there was, I think there was a little bit of that.
I love so much that, like, your mission is to help, I'll use the word help awaken humanity. What a wonderful mission that is. And for them to be able to see that they are not broken, they just maybe haven't loved themselves enough. They haven't given themselves enough mercy. Like, what a beautiful way to spend the next part of your entire existence until your body finally hits the ground and, you dirt upon you and you transcend to somewhere else. When that happens, what do you want to be remembered for?
I'll tell you what, I'll quote the book that's sitting right next to me, right? As a difference maker, someone that made a difference let me read it to you, because I think it's just great, right? A dedicated person who can make a big impact with just a small action or a few words. Someone who makes a difference in the lives of others. Your kindness and love touch hearts in ways you may never know. And I carry this with me out here for that reason, because I was hoping you'd ask that question. And I thought about it, and it's like, but what do you say? And it's like, can we just make a difference in a positive difference in each other's lives? And, and you got to do that. In some ways, it's like it starts one person at a time, and then it's like, okay, what's working when I'm doing that, and I'm finding something that's resonating with people. And so it's like, all right, let me try to do that with as many, we just broaden the avenues with which that message gets out there, and then see where it takes us, see where it evolves. But
more and more people I see that live themselves in an abundant lifestyle, meaning they have choices and options they can make besides going to an office. Maybe it's what I attract in my space, and I'm open to that. But what I experience over and over and over is the same story you're saying. And that is that we want to awaken humanity. We want to get them past their pain so they can see the greatness of who they are, and do it with something much bigger than themselves, which connects us back here to ourselves, which creates heaven on earth. So what to you, because the name of the show is The Spiritual Capitalist, has so many different meanings to so many different people. And it's something I'm always constantly exploring and seeing, like, what is this thing that we're creating, right? Because this is an evolution, it's an experiment, and even in the name itself, what does that mean to you?
Oh, when I heard the name of it, I was just like finally, someone is connecting these dots, right? Like, we think about capitalism. Capitalism gets a lot of negative connotations because it is in some ways, it's who I personified myself as, because a capitalist meant to me like someone who just makes money, right? And we're building businesses, we're impacting lives, we're not work-life balancing. Like, all of this stuff is connected, and ultimately, we are all energetic beings that are connected in some spiritual way. And as we all say, like, whatever word you want to use for it, it doesn't matter to me, but there's a spiritualism to all of this. And when we can take the blessing that capitalism brings us, as it has brought me, which allows me the freedom to now explore these things and do these things where I'm not worried about, hey, where's the next meal coming from? Like, that is powerful stuff. And can we, the more people we can get into that space, like I forget exactly how you put it, but like we're gonna have to do this sort of like one person at a time, and watch it, hopefully watch it completely transform the way we approach capitalism, the way we approach our work lives, and then ultimately and most importantly, how we treat one another. Like that's and I guess I would add to that, maybe more importantly, how are we treating ourselves?
That's a perfect way to leave it, man. That is a perfect way to leave it. I really appreciate you coming out here. Thank you for doing your own work, man. Thank you for doing your healing journey. Thank you for being the radiant light and person that you are. I'm super grateful that you came all the way out here, just to be part of this experience. And I can't wait to see your book come out. It's going to come out. It's not just on a computer. I can't wait for the second book to come out. I can't wait to see how your consulting business starts to transform and how you start to transform people, because everybody's looking for that guiding light. And I really appreciate you being one of them.
Well, I thank you for the invite. Thank you for being who you are and making me feel so comfortable. It was really wonderful. So thanks.
You're welcome, man. Cheers.